everyone! We're really excited to have our children's story in a brand new place this morning. We also have a ton of resources on our website. If you go to the children's ministry page, it'll bring up all the things we're offering. We've got discussion guides, we've got activity things going on, and we also have devotionals that you can do by yourself. Today, our storyteller is Mr. Steve, and he's going to tell you about some really good friendships that he's experienced in his life, as well as a friendship in the Bible. So sit tight and hear what he has to say.
Hi, I'm Mr. Steve. You've probably seen me teaching Quest 45, and I know that this week we're talking about friends. Ms. Kelsey told us that that's going to be basically what we're talking about with these stories this month. Everybody has friends. I'm sure you have plenty of examples of friends. There are a couple of examples of friends in my life that I think are really good examples. One is my twin granddaughters, who are 8 years old and in 3rd grade, have together a best friend whose name is Krishna. They met Krishna when they were in kindergarten, and they're kind of sad right now because they don't get to see each other very often, because unlike previous years, they're not in school at the same time. When I was in 5th grade, I met my best friend who lived next door to me, and I moved in when I was in 5th grade, and I met Gary the next day. And we were best buddies for the longest time. And Gary and I shared a lot of things together. One of the things we shared together that's a little bit important is I taught Gary how to play golf. And Gary became much better than I was at golf. But I wasn't jealous. Friends are so important. You help them out, they help you out. They support your life when things are tough. They have fun with you. And friends support each other all the time. They are not jealous of each other. In the Old Testament Bible, in the book of 1 Samuel, written by, wait for it, somebody named Samuel, there's an incredible story about the power of friendship and its meaning. Let's talk about it. Before we get into the story itself, we need a little bit of background. God had given his people, the Israelites, 2 kinds of leaders, judges and prophets. The judges guided the people. The prophets listened to God and shared his words with the people. But the Israelites were a little jealous because they saw all the countries around them had kings. And they said, we need a king too. They figured that would give them more status with their neighbors. And God told Samuel to go ahead and appoint a king. And Samuel appointed Saul to be the king. And later on, he would appoint David to be the king. Now, Saul was the first king. And everybody expected, because it's how succession to being a king worked, that his successor would be his son, Jonathan. But God had already decided that David was going to be the next king. Saul chose David to lead his armies into battle, and David kept winning. And David was very, very popular. Jonathan and David were friends. And just like good friends are supposed to do, Jonathan was not jealous of David's success or status. He was very happy for David's success, just like I was happy for my friend Gary's success on the golf course. Gary even made it to the state high school championships when he was a senior in high school. I was proud of him. Jonathan believed that David should become king. However, Saul was very jealous of David. He did not like how popular David was. One time he threw a spear at David, and later he ordered his servants and even Jonathan to kill David. Jonathan told David about this and had David go into hiding. Well, Jonathan didn't like this, so he went to his dad and he made him promise not to hurt David. And this lasted for a while, but later on, Saul was again back trying to harm David. Jonathan wanted to protect his friend. He told David, "Whatever you want me to do, I will do for you." David and Jonathan came up with a plan. Saul was planning a feast, and David was supposed to go. And Jonathan and David decided that David would skip the feast so that they could see what Saul's reaction was. Their plan was pretty simple. Jonathan would have an excuse for David not being there, and he would know where David was hiding. If Saul became so angry with David that he threatened to kill him again, Jonathan would signal David by shooting an arrow beyond David's hiding place. If Saul was okay, he'd shoot the arrow short of the hiding place. The long arrow was a signal to David that he needed to get out. The short arrow was a signal that David could come out, retrieve the arrow, hand it to Jonathan, and go back. Jonathan asked for one thing from David in return. From 1 Samuel chapter 20, verses 14 to 17, he said, "And remember, you must demonstrate the love and kindness of the Lord, not only to me in my own lifetime, but also to my children after the Lord has destroyed all your enemies." So Jonathan made a covenant with the family of David, and David swore to it with a terrible curse against himself and his descendants, should he be unfaithful to his promise. But Jonathan made David swear to it again, this time by his love for him, for he loved him as much as he loved himself. And I thought that was a really important thing where it says that, because friends love each other. So, that was the plan. And when they went to the feast, when Jonathan went to the feast, things didn't go so well. Jonathan delivered David's excuse, and Saul became so mad that he sent an arrow right at Jonathan. Jonathan then knew that David was not safe. So, when it came time to shoot the arrow, he shot it way past David, and David knew that he had to leave and go someplace else. Before David left, Jonathan was able to get to David and say goodbye because he realized he was alone, he wasn't going to be observed. And Jonathan was obviously sad that his friend had to leave, but he said this to David as they parted. In verse 42, he says, "Cheer up, for we have entrusted each other and each other's children into God's hand forever." So they parted, David going away and Jonathan returning to the city. This is a real story of friendship. Jonathan certainly could have been jealous of David. After all, the king's son is supposed to be the next king. But instead, he helped his friend out, and he was loyal to his friend. Eventually, David kept his part of the deal. After he became king, he was kind to Jonathan and his family. That's what friends do. They show love to each other and they keep their promises. My girls show love to their friend Krishna. I showed love to my friend Gary. In fact, the last time I saw him, which must have been about 10 years ago, I played golf with him. And as usual, he beat me. But it was a cool thing. And again, keeping friendships with friends and trusting your friends is one of the most important lessons we can learn about friendship.